Hey everyone, this is Dave H. from jambonz.org. Jambonz is the open source CPaaS for service providers, and we're out with the new release, version 0.6.4, and I wanted to take a quick spin through some of the new features for you. I've just logged into a fresh system that I spun up on AWS, and the first thing I'll draw your attention to is this drop down in the nav bar at top of service provider. We've added more support for multi-tenant in this release through the concept of a service provider. So there's really a three-layer hierarchy. When you spin up a system on AWS or on your own hosting, on your own bare metal or whatever, you essentially are the platform owner, and you are able to create service providers underneath you, and service providers in turn have end users. So it's a way of segmenting end users so that things like carriers, speech, can all be in a different tenant and used by different accounts. The typical use case is that you're going to spin up an account, you're going to be the default service provider, you're going to create accounts, and off you go. But this gives you the flexibility if someone were to approach you and want to essentially rent your platform and control their own user base on it, you'd be able to do that. So the system comes with one, when you spin it up, it's the database is seated with one service provider called the default service provider. I've created another one here, and you can create and delete additional ones as well. Turning to the next feature, let's go from the bottom up, we'll look at the speech tab. In previous releases, speech credentials were laid out on a file system. You may recall that if you've built up a system. So it was a little bit hard to change. You had to SSH and SCP files into the server and so forth, which is a little bit of a pain. Now they're held in the database, and you can simply add them through the portal, which is a lot easier. So here, if I want to add a speech service that will be used for this service provider and all the accounts underneath, I can choose Google or AWS. I just go. In the case of Google, I'm just going to pick the file that's got my JSON key. And off we go. So now I've added a speech service for this service provider. The little green checkbox means that we've actually tested it for speech, and it's fine. So that's how you add speech, both for Google and AWS. Adding carriers is much the same as before, but again, carriers are scoped to a service provider. So you can have one service provider and set of accounts that use one carrier set of credentials, and a different service provider that can use different carriers, again, for the multi-tenant solution. One thing that is new when you add a carrier is that you can, as before, add all the information here by hand in terms of their gateways and so forth. But we do have a predefined list of some common carriers that people have been using, and we'll add more as people request it. So if, for instance, I was using Twilio as a carrier, I can just select it from the list. And here I've got all the Twilio gateways filled in for me. Same with Simwood and Voxbone and some of the others, Telecom Exchange. On the outbound with Twilio, of course, everybody gets to name their trunk differently. I've got a trunk on Twilio called jambonz-xyz, so I'll go ahead and put that in. If you're using Twilio username and password authentication on the outbound, you can put that here. I'm not. I'm just using IP whitelisting, so I'll get rid of that. And basically that's it. I've created a carrier trunk that easily. Moving up, alerts is new and recent calls are new. So alerts will show you any failures in the system from things like webhooks that returned an unexpected response. Particularly with webhooks, you're often calling a customer's code, and that can fail for reasons outside of your control. If that happens, you'll see an alert here with a descriptive message. You may see that you've got a 404 not found from a webhook that a customer had configured or you configured for a customer. So the alerts are things like that, things in the system that didn't go well, usually with your speech configuration, your webhook configuration, so that you can identify and fix them quickly and easily. Recent calls gives you a call history. We didn't used to have that. Now we're showing you a call history, and you can filter it in various ways. Applications is the same as before, but when on a fresh system, you get two applications automatically created for you that are available at public URLs that'll let you test the system right off the bat very quickly without having to write an application yourself. Hello World and Dial Time. Hello World is an inbound application that just uses text-to-speech. So it's a great way, once you've configured your carrier and speech, to test that they're working. You just route a phone number to this application, and you're going to hear a prompt if all goes well. Testing outbound is a good thing to do as well, and you can use the dial time application to do that. It simply dials out to a speaking clock and lets you verify that. So those are the new features in the version 0.6.4, multi-tenant, bringing the speech into the database, better support for predefined carriers, recent calls and alerts. In the next video that I'll do in this series, I'll show you how to build up a system on this release on AWS, and there's a couple different options for doing that. That's all for now. Thanks, and have a great day.